Welcome to Blackman Folk Tales. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also like and share. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell, as this means the whole world to us. Mark Caldwell had always been ambitious, a man who measured life not in quiet moments of contentment but in milestones of success and achievement. On the surface he had everything one could desire: a beautiful suburban home, a devoted wife named Laura, 2 children who adored him, and a life carefully constructed to project happiness and stability. Yet beneath that polished exterior Mark felt trapped. The days blurred together in a monotonous cycle of school runs, board meetings, and dinner routines that once brought comfort but now felt like chains around his chest. He watched Laura prepare breakfast with her usual warmth, saw his children laughing in the yard, and yet a gnawing emptiness haunted him. The spark he had once carried, the driving ambition that had led him to build a successful company from scratch, had dulled under the weight of predictability and obligation. He felt a growing restlessness, an ache for something more, something extraordinary that would make him feel alive again. That longing became dangerous, whispering in quiet moments that there was a life beyond the walls of his orderly existence, a world that promised excitement, passion, and the thrill of the unknown. And then he met Vanessa. She entered his world with the force of a storm, bold, captivating, and unafraid to chase her own desires. She challenged him, admired his success but demanded more, promising him a life filled with adventure, glamour, and freedom from the responsibilities that had begun to suffocate him. Their meetings, initially casual encounters at business events, evolved into long dinners and secret rendezvous, each one intensifying the magnetic pull between them. Mark felt emotions he had long buried: excitement, desire, and the intoxicating illusion of limitless possibility. Slowly, the line between moral responsibility and selfish yearning blurred. He began to convince himself that his family would understand eventually, that love could endure absence, and that the new life awaiting him was not betrayal but liberation. As the weeks turned into months, Mark's internal conflict deepened. He juggled 2 worlds, the one he had built with Laura and the one Vanessa promised him, but his heart increasingly leaned toward the latter. Each day spent at home felt suffocating, each bedtime story read to his children a reminder of the life he yearned to escape. He rationalized his desire with half-truths, that his family deserved a husband who was fully engaged, not distracted by restlessness, that he too deserved happiness, even if it meant seeking it elsewhere. The tension eroded him quietly, manifesting in irritability and distance, leaving Laura puzzled and hurt. She noticed the late nights, the subtle emotional withdrawal, the way he looked at her with a distant gaze that no explanation could satisfy. But Mark was already slipping away, mentally preparing to sever ties he once held sacred. The decision, once contemplated in fleeting thoughts, became a calculated plan. He sold his home quietly, orchestrated a move, and created a separation that would minimize confrontation, telling himself he was sparing his family the pain of prolonged conflict. In truth, he wanted to erase the past, to start over with a clean slate where desire and ambition could reign unchallenged. He imagined a life of luxury, romance, and adventure with Vanessa, free from the small disappointments and emotional labor that had begun to feel like burdens. Nights alone in his bed, once filled with dreams of family, now held fantasies of a future where he was unencumbered, praised for his success, and adored for the first time not as a father or husband, but as a man who had chosen freely for himself. The day he left arrived with the hollow satisfaction of finality. Laura pleaded, her eyes red and trembling, trying to reason with a man whose mind was already made up. The children clung to him, unaware of the permanence of his departure, their small hands gripping his suit as if sheer force could alter fate. Mark felt a pang of guilt, a momentary stab that he quickly suppressed under the rush of anticipation for his new life. He told himself that this was necessary, that passion and freedom outweighed the weight of duty, that love could be repaired in time. As he drove away from the home he had built, the streets familiar yet now alien beneath his tires, he felt a strange exhilaration mingled with apprehension. For a brief moment, he glimpsed Laura's tear-streaked face in the rearview mirror, the faces of his children pressed against the window, and the full weight of what he was abandoning threatened to pierce his defenses. But he told himself that excitement, the promise of a life without limitations, was worth any regret. He would start anew, redefine himself, and bask in the thrills he had long denied himself. What he did not know, however, was that the price of desire often arrives too late, and that some decisions once made cannot be undone. For Mark Caldwell, the life he sought would soon reveal itself to be hollow, the freedom he chased a cage of loneliness, and the family he left behind a treasure he would realize too late he could never replace. At first, Mark's new life with Vanessa seemed like a dream he had been waiting for his entire existence. The penthouse apartment overlooking the city glittered like a jewel in the night, the kind of home that people envied, full of opulence and the latest technology, designed to reflect a life of achievement and liberation. Vanessa, as dazzling as she had seemed at the gala, proved to be the perfect partner in the art of indulgence. She laughed without restraint, challenged him in ways that reignited the spark he had long thought lost, and celebrated every accomplishment no matter how small. For the first time in years, Mark felt that intoxicating rush, the thrill of being desired, admired, and untethered from responsibility. Parties, galas, and exclusive trips filled their calendar, and for a while he believed he had finally escaped the suffocating predictability of his past life. He reveled in the attention of new acquaintances who treated him as a man of excitement rather than a husband burdened by mundane obligations. Mark's mornings began with champagne in sunlit windows, his afternoons with meetings that were as much about leisure as business, and his nights with laughter and whispered promises from Vanessa. The exhilaration was overwhelming, convincing him that the sacrifices he had made, the children he would never tuck in at night, the wife he would never comfort after a hard day, were justified. He allowed himself to fully embrace the fantasy, convinced that the thrill of desire and novelty could replace the deep, steady love he had once known. Yet beneath the glittering surface, cracks began to appear almost immediately. Vanessa's devotion was conditional, rooted in her own desire for excitement and novelty rather than genuine, enduring affection. She praised his success, but she criticized his decisions when they did not align with her fantasies. Friends and colleagues in their new social circle were equally shallow, fascinated by his wealth but indifferent to his history, his struggles, and the man he truly was. The penthouse, once a symbol of freedom, became a gilded cage where he realized that admiration and luxury could never substitute for the warmth of genuine connection. More troubling were the memories that crept in unbidden, haunting him during quiet moments. The echo of his children's laughter at the breakfast table, Laura's gentle voice reading a bedtime story, the little rituals of family life that no amount of champagne or applause could replicate. He began to experience sleepless nights, plagued by dreams in which he tried to reach out to his children, only to find them distant and unrecognizing, their eyes reflecting abandonment. Every missed phone call, every unanswered message from Laura reminded him that he had not merely left a home. He had left hearts, lives, and bonds that could not be replicated. He realized that the excitement he had chased came at a cost far higher than he anticipated. Freedom without love was emptiness, novelty without roots was loneliness, and desire without meaning was hollow. Yet he struggled to reconcile these feelings with the life he had chosen, oscillating between exhilaration and guilt, trying desperately to convince himself that the pleasures of the present could outweigh the permanent losses he had inflicted on those he once loved. As months passed, the illusion of perfection crumbled completely. Vanessa's attention shifted to younger, more exciting men, her laughter at his jokes less frequent, her warmth increasingly conditional. Friends who had once toasted his accomplishments began to drift away, revealing that their admiration had never been genuine. Mark's wealth, once a source of pride, felt empty without the people who truly mattered. The penthouse, the cars, the trips, all of it became symbols of his isolation, reminding him that material possessions could never replace love, loyalty, or family. He began to understand the true depth of the price he had paid. His children grew up without a father's presence, their milestones passing him by, while Laura rebuilt her life without his influence, displaying resilience he had never anticipated. The guilt that had once lurked quietly in the back of his mind now consumed him, manifesting in restless nights, headaches, and a profound sense of alienation. He tried to reach out to Laura, attempting to justify his choices, to convince her that he had needed this life, but each interaction only reminded him of the irreversible damage he had caused. The more he tried to immerse himself in the thrill of the present, the more he realized that the life he had abandoned, the steady, enduring love of his family, was irreplaceable. And in that realization, Mark felt a despair so profound that the excitement he had sought now seemed like a cruel joke. He had gained wealth, thrill, and freedom, but he had lost the very essence of what had made life meaningful. Years passed, and Mark watched from a distance as the family he had abandoned flourished without him. Laura, once heartbroken and weary, had found strength in herself and in her children, guiding them with love and integrity that no absence could erase. His children grew into vibrant, intelligent individuals, excelling in school and extracurricular activities, their lives rich with experiences he could no longer claim. Mark observed them from afar, attending events he could not fully participate in, realizing that the milestones he had missed were gone forever. Birthdays celebrated without him, school plays performed without applause from a father's seat, nights of triumph and distress alike endured without his counsel. These were losses that wealth, luxury, or thrill could never replace. He tried to reach out, to reconnect, but Laura's voice, once warm and inviting, now held the firmness of someone who had endured and grown stronger without him. Every call ended with polite but final distance. Every message returned with measured words that left no room for reconciliation. Mark felt the weight of his choices as a constant ache, a gnawing emptiness in the heart he had once filled with ambition rather than love. His days in the penthouse, once vibrant with excitement, now passed in solitude, each glittering view of the city skyline reminding him of what he had forsaken. He began to realize the cruel irony of his pursuit. The freedom he had sought had become a prison, and the thrill he had chased had led him to a life of isolation. The final blow came when Vanessa, the very woman who had drawn him away from his family, left him for someone younger, more exciting and more adventurous. She walked away without hesitation, leaving him with the trappings of luxury but none of the warmth, connection, or love he had once thought permanent. In the echoing silence of his opulent apartment, Mark understood that he had not merely lost Vanessa. He had lost everything that truly mattered. Wealth could not fill the void of absent children, elegance could not replace genuine affection, and excitement could not compensate for the absence of enduring bonds. He tried desperately to reach Laura one last time, yearning for a fragment of the family he had abandoned, for forgiveness he knew he might not deserve. When he called, her response was calm, unwavering and final. "You made your choice. Now live with it." That moment crystallized the permanence of his loss, the consequences of a choice made in pursuit of desire rather than devotion. Mark realized that life rarely offers a second chance, and when it does, it is often too late to reclaim what was sacrificed. His children's laughter, Laura's care, and the warmth of a home built on love were gone, irretrievable. In the years that followed, Mark lived in the shadow of regret, a man surrounded by material success yet haunted by emotional bankruptcy. He became a cautionary tale in his own mind, that choices made in pursuit of selfish ambition can destroy the very foundations of one's life. He watched other families celebrate, watched fathers embrace their children, and saw in them the life he had abandoned forever. Occasionally he would glance at old photographs, smiling faces captured in happier times, and feel a pang so deep it left him hollow. He had chased novelty and freedom, but all he had found was emptiness. He had left the ones he loved for a mirage, only to discover that the life he truly desired had always been the one he abandoned. Mark Caldwell, once a man of ambition and charm, now existed as a somber reminder that choices have consequences, and that regret, once planted, can grow into a weight too heavy to escape. The life he had once rejected had become the life he would never reclaim, and in the echo of what was lost, he understood the cruelest truth. Some decisions, once made, are irreversible, and some mistakes are learned only when it is too late. Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as this means a lot to us.